In February 2026, the Florida Department of Health tested popular bread brands sold in grocery stores across America and found glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup weed killer, in 6 out of 8 products. But slice open the wrong loaf, and what you are really eating is herbicide residues, hidden sugars, and chemical dough conditioners dressed up as wholesome organic goodness. For anyone managing blood pressure with daily medication, or families feeding this bread to kids every morning, those chemicals are compounding the exact problems you are trying to control. In the next 15 minutes, I am going to expose 9 organic bread brands that are betraying your trust, including one that was caught with the highest glyphosate level ever recorded in a branded loaf. Stay until the end, because I will also reveal the 2 brands that actually tested clean, and a simple trick to spot the fakes in seconds. Coming in at number 9, we have Market Pantry Organic from Target. The packaging screams everything you want to hear. USDA Organic. Whole wheat. Simple ingredients. You pick it up at Target because you trust the store, you trust the seal, and you trust that organic means clean. Independent lab testing by the Detox Project tells a different story. Market Pantry. 100%. Whole wheat sandwich. Bread tested at 348 parts per billion of glyphosate. That is Roundup. In bread labeled organic, in a store that positions itself as a family-friendly destination. The USDA Organic Standard prohibits the use of synthetic herbicides on certified organic crops. So, how does a weed killer end up inside organic bread at 348 parts per billion? The answer is drift. Glyphosate floats through the air from neighboring conventional farms, settles on organic wheat fields, and contaminates the grain before it ever reaches the mill. The organic certification does not require testing for drift contamination. It only requires that the farmer did not spray it themselves. So the seal is real, the contamination is also real, and nobody is required to tell you about it. Open this loaf and it looks like every other sliced bread. Soft, uniform, the faint smell of wheat. Nothing about it warns you. But glyphosate is classified as a probable human carcinogen by the World Health Organization. For anyone on ACE inhibitors or managing kidney function or parents packing school lunches every morning, that is not a trace amount. That is a daily dose of a chemical linked to gut microbiome disruption, liver inflammation, and neurological damage. Organic on the label. Roundup in the bread. Target gets your trust. Glyphosate gets your gut. And if you think Target is the only store selling contaminated organic bread, wait until you see what one of America's most trusted health food chains is hiding on its shelves. At number 8, we are looking at 365 by Whole Foods. This is Amazon's store-brand organic bread, sold in the one grocery chain that built its entire reputation on clean food. Whole Foods banned bromated flour, artificial colors, and azotic carbonamide from its shelves years ago. They published an unacceptable ingredients list with over 80 banned substances. You walk into that store expecting the highest standard in America. The Detox Project tested 365 whole wheat sandwich bread and found 1,040 parts per billion of glyphosate. 1,040 parts per billion in organic bread from Whole Foods. That is nearly 3 times the level found in the Market Pantry bread we just covered. It is the second highest glyphosate reading ever recorded in a branded bread product in the United States. Whole Foods charges a premium because you believe you are buying safety. You are buying a logo on a bag of contaminated wheat. The bread looks beautiful. Golden brown crust, dense crumb, the earthy aroma of whole grain. You slice it, toast it, serve it to your family, and every bite delivers weed killer residue that the store promised you would never encounter. A 2024 report from the Detox Project found that 100% of wheat-based products tested positive for glyphosate residues, organic and conventional alike. But organic products are supposed to contain 12 times less than conventional. 365 bread blew past that ratio and landed in the danger zone. For people who switch to Whole Foods specifically to avoid pesticides, or anyone on blood thinners whose liver is already working overtime to process medication, this is not a minor finding. It is a fundamental betrayal. Premium prices, banned ingredient lists, an organic seal on every bag, and 1,040 parts per billion of Roundup hiding behind all of it. If the health food store cannot keep weed killer out of its own brand, what hope does a mass market brand have? None, as it turns out. If this helps you stay safer at the store, hit subscribe. It is free, and it means you will never miss these investigations. Now at number 7, it is Nature's Own. This is one of the best-selling bread brands in the United States, owned by Flowers Foods, a company that pulls in over $5 billion in annual revenue. Nature's Own does not claim to be organic, but the name alone does the work. Nature's Own. It sounds clean. It sounds pure. It sounds like someone hand-picked the wheat and baked it with care. In February 2026, the Florida Department of Health tested Nature's Own butter bread as part of the Healthy Florida First initiative. The result was 190 parts per billion of glyphosate. Nature's Own perfectly crafted white came in at 132 parts per billion. Both products contained weed killer residue in every slice. Nature's Own also contains calcium propionate, a chemical preservative linked in studies to behavioral changes and irritability. It contains DATEM, a dough conditioner made from chemically modified fats, and in some varieties, it contains sodium stearoyl lactylate, an emulsifier that helps bread feel soft on the shelf for weeks. None of these belong in bread. All of them serve the same purpose: longer shelf life, faster production, cheaper costs. That soft, pillowy texture you feel when you squeeze the bag is not freshness. It is engineering, designed to make you believe this bread is something it is not. A single serving contains up to 200 milligrams of sodium. 2 slices with your morning eggs, and you have consumed nearly 20% of the daily sodium limit recommended for adults watching their blood pressure. For people managing hypertension alongside daily medication, or families feeding this to children who already consume too much sodium from other processed foods, that is a silent escalation your doctor never warned you about. Nature's Own is worth $5 billion. They could source clean wheat, they choose not to. Drop a comment if Nature's Own is sitting on your counter right now. Let us see how many of us have been eating this. Think you have been making the smart choice by paying more for whole grain labels? Wait until you see what premium really means. Here is something important. There is a simple way to protect yourself from every single brand on this list. A method to spot the fakes in seconds right there in the store aisle. I am going to break it all down at the very end of this video, so stay with me. This next one might surprise you. Number 6 is Pepperidge Farm. The brand with the red bag, the old-fashioned logo, the name that sounds like it belongs on a country farmhouse. Pepperidge Farm has been selling bread since 1937. Generations of families have trusted it. The company is now owned by Campbell Soup Company, a corporation with over $8 billion in annual revenue. Independent testing found 587 parts per billion of glyphosate in Pepperidge Farm 100% whole grain, whole wheat bread. That is nearly triple the level found in Nature's Own. Their Jewish rye and pumpernickel deli swirl tested at 531 parts per billion. 2 products, both saturated with herbicide residue. Pepperidge Farm uses the word wholesome in its marketing. It uses images of farmhouses and wheat fields. It charges more than most competitors because it positions itself as the premium choice. But the wheat comes from the same industrial supply chain as every budget brand. The same fields, the same desiccation practice where glyphosate is sprayed directly on the crop right before harvest to dry it out faster. That practice concentrates residues in the grain. Your premium price pays for a logo, not for cleaner wheat. Pick up a loaf of Pepperidge Farm whole wheat. It feels heavier than the budget brands. The crust has visible grain flecks. It smells faintly of honey and oats. Everything about it signals quality. Nothing about it signals 587 parts per billion of Roundup. For anyone managing cholesterol with statin medication, or people with inflammatory conditions who chose whole wheat because they thought it was the healthier option, this bread is delivering the opposite of what the packaging promises. A single serving of their whole wheat contains 160 milligrams of sodium and up to 3 grams of added sugar. Wholesome marketing. Industrial reality. 89 years of trust and still cutting corners on the wheat. That was a heritage brand betraying its reputation. The next one is a brand people switched to thinking they were avoiding everything we just talked about. They were not. Number 5 is one most people trust without question. It is Arnold Organic. The name Arnold has been in American kitchens for decades. When they launched their organic line, health-conscious shoppers saw it as the answer. USDA organic on the front, whole grains listed first. The promise of bread made the right way. But look closer at the ingredient list. Arnold Organic bread contains organic soybean oil, a processed fat that does not belong in traditional bread. It contains organic cane sugar, which sounds harmless until you realize that added sugar in bread is a modern invention designed to make you eat more. Some varieties contain ascorbic acid as a dough conditioner and cultured wheat flour as a preservative substitute. These are not dangerous on their own, but they reveal something important. This is not bread made the old way. This is industrial bread wearing an organic costume. The organic certification means the ingredients were grown without synthetic pesticides. It does not mean the bread is simple. It does not mean it is traditional. It does not mean it is free from processed additives that serve the factory, not your body. Arnold is owned by Bimbo Bakeries USA, a subsidiary of Grupo Bimbo, the largest baking company on the planet. Annual revenue exceeding $20 billion. They produce bread on a massive industrial scale, and organic or not, the process prioritizes shelf life, uniformity, and profit margin. Open a loaf. The slices are perfectly even. The texture is engineered to stay soft for weeks. Real bread goes stale in days. Arnold Organic does not, because the formulation is designed to resist time, not nourish your body. For people managing blood sugar or anyone on metformin who chose organic bread to reduce their glycemic load, the added sugars and processed oils in this loaf are working against your goals. Organic does not mean clean. It means the pesticides were organic. The rest of the recipe is corporate, but we are not even close to the worst yet. Number 2 on this list did something that made us rethink everything we thought we knew about organic labels. Here is where it gets personal. Number 4 is Sara Lee, the name that has been synonymous with American baking for over 70 years. Sara Lee honey wheat is marketed as a wholesome choice. Honey in the name, wheat on the label. The soft, golden packaging designed to make you feel like you are choosing something better for your family. In February 2026, Florida's Department of Health tested Sara Lee honey wheat bread. The result was 191 parts per billion of glyphosate. That is the highest level recorded in the entire Florida bread testing initiative. Higher than Wonderbread, higher than Nature's Own. The bread with honey in its name had more weed killer than any other product tested. But the betrayal runs deeper. Look at the ingredient list. Sara Lee honey. Wheat contains high fructose corn syrup, a cheap sweetener linked to insulin resistance, fatty liver disease, and metabolic syndrome. It contains calcium sulfate, an industrial compound also used in construction plaster. It contains monoglycerides and DATEM, chemical emulsifiers that keep the bread soft and fluffy on the shelf while your gut struggles to process them. The honey in the name represents a fraction of the sweetener used. The bulk of the sweetness comes from corn syrup. For anyone managing type 2 diabetes alongside daily medication, or families who chose the honey wheat option because it sounded healthier than white bread, that ingredient list is sabotaging your efforts. 2 slices contain 240 milligrams of sodium and 5 grams of added sugar. That is before you add anything to the sandwich. Sara Lee honey wheat has been on shelves for decades. It has been in lunchboxes, in hospitals, in nursing homes, on dinner tables across every state. The highest glyphosate reading in the Florida tests. Corn syrup disguised as honey. Construction chemicals in your sandwich. Is it not strange how the brands spending the most on advertising always seem to be the ones cutting the most corners on what actually goes into the food? Makes you wonder where all that money is really going. I know some of you are watching this thinking, okay, so what bread can I actually trust? That answer is coming. There are exactly 2 brands that passed every single test we looked at, but I am saving those for after the countdown. Keep watching. At number 3, we have got Wonderbread, the iconic white loaf, the brand that defined American bread for nearly a century. Wonderbread does not pretend to be organic. It does not market itself as health food, but it markets itself as a family staple, something wholesome and trustworthy for everyday meals. In the Florida testing, Wonderbread Classic White registered 173 parts per billion of glyphosate. Weed killer in the bread your grandmother served. Weed killer in the loaf you grew up eating. But glyphosate is not even the biggest problem with Wonderbread. The ingredient list reads like a chemistry textbook. Calcium sulfate, sodium stearoyl lactylate, monocalcium phosphate, DATEM, calcium peroxide, soy lecithin, enriched bleached wheat flour, which means the wheat was stripped of its nutrients, bleached with chemical whitening agents, then artificially fortified with synthetic vitamins to replace what the processing destroyed. You open the bag and that distinctive, soft, sweet smell hits you. The bread is white as paper. It compresses to almost nothing when you squeeze it, then bounces back. That is not bread. That is a chemical sponge engineered to feel like food. And here is the stat that should alarm you. 95% of American households purchase bread regularly. Wonderbread has been one of the top sellers for decades. That means millions of people every single week are consuming a product loaded with bleaching agents, industrial emulsifiers, and herbicide residue. For people over 50 who have been eating this bread their entire lives and are now managing heart conditions or kidney function, those decades of daily exposure have compounded. Every slice for 40 years. Every sandwich, every piece of toast, every hot dog bun at a summer barbecue. The chemicals do not leave. They accumulate. Wonderbread built an empire on nostalgia. Your loyalty built their fortune. What did they build in return? A loaf full of chemicals they never told you about. And somehow, number 3 is not even the worst. The number 1 spot goes to a brand that nearly every health-conscious shopper in America has trusted at some point, and what we found made us question the entire organic industry. Coming in at number 2, this is Dave's Killer Bread. I told you number 2 did something that made us rethink organic labels. Here is what happened. Dave's Killer Bread is the darling of the organic bread aisle. Bold packaging, an inspiring origin story, USDA organic certification, non-GMO project verified. It is the bread that health-conscious shoppers grab without hesitation. The one recommended by nutritionists, the one sitting in millions of kitchens right now because people believe they are making the best possible choice. Then the test results started rolling in. The Alliance for Natural Health tested Dave's Killer Whole Wheat Bread and found 136 parts per billion of glyphosate in organic bread. Moms across America tested Dave's Killer Bread Good Seed and detected glyphosate at 12 parts per billion. In 2026, Florida's testing found glyphosate in Dave's Killer Bread White Done Right at nearly 12 parts per billion, and in the 21 whole grain at over 10 parts per billion. Test after test after test, year after year. Glyphosate keeps showing up in bread certified organic. Dave's Killer Bread is owned by Flowers Foods, the same $5 billion corporation that owns Nature's Own, the same parent company, the same supply chain infrastructure, the same industrial scale sourcing. The organic label is real. The organic reality is compromised. And the levels, while lower than conventional brands, prove that organic certification does not guarantee zero contamination. It never did. Now look at the ingredient list. Organic cane sugar, organic molasses, organic cultured wheat flour, organic expeller-pressed canola oil. These are processed ingredients. Real bread needs flour, water, salt, and yeast. Everything beyond that serves the manufacturer, not you. For anyone who specifically chose Dave's Killer Bread because they are managing inflammation, or people on immunosuppressant medication who were told to eat clean, this is the brand you trusted most, delivering exactly what you were trying to avoid. The inspiring story on the package. The weed killer inside the bag. The organic seal that protects the brand, not the consumer. This next one is a brand that has been lying to you even longer, and it earned the number 1 spot on this list. And at number 1, the worst organic bread brand we found, it is Village Hearth. I told you at the start that one brand was caught with something so alarming it does not even belong in bread. This is that brand. Village Hearth, 100% whole wheat. Bread tested at 1,150 parts per billion of glyphosate. 1,150. The highest glyphosate level ever recorded in any branded bread product tested in the United States. That is not a trace amount. That is not drift. That is a massive concentration of a chemical classified as a probable human carcinogen by the World Health Organization, sitting inside a loaf marketed as 100% whole wheat. To put that number in perspective, the Florida tests found Nature's Own at 190 parts per billion and called it troubling. Village Hearth is more than 6 times that level. The WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer linked glyphosate to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with a 41% increased risk. Bayer, the company that bought Monsanto, has paid over $10 billion in damages to people who developed cancer after exposure to Roundup. And this bread delivered more of that chemical per serving than any other product on the shelf. Pick up a loaf of Village Hearth. It weighs like real bread. The crust has that rustic look. The label says 100% whole wheat, and your brain fills in the rest. Wholesome, honest, nutritious. But that warm, weedy smell is masking a chemical load that no regulatory agency in the world would call safe at this concentration for daily consumption. 31% of American wheat is treated with glyphosate before harvest. The desiccation process concentrates the chemical in the outer hull of the grain. Whole wheat bread retains that hull. That is why whole wheat consistently tests higher than white bread. The healthier choice is delivering more poison. For people who switch to whole wheat specifically to protect their heart, or anyone on blood pressure medication whose kidneys are already filtering pharmaceutical compounds every day, adding 1,150 parts per billion of herbicide to that workload is not a minor concern. It is a compounding risk that no doctor has accounted for in your treatment plan. Chronic exposure to glyphosate is linked to gut microbiome disruption, liver inflammation, hormonal interference, and neurological damage. Village Hearth never issued a warning, never pulled the product, never acknowledged the testing. The label still says 100% whole wheat. The bread still sits on shelves in grocery stores across the Midwest. This is the brand that made us question whether the words on a bread label mean anything at all anymore. Now, remember when I said there were two brands that passed every single test? Here they are. The first safe recommendation is Food for Life. Ezekiel 49 sprouted. Whole grain bread. This is the bread that does what every brand on this list only pretends to do. Food for Life uses no flour at all. Instead, they sprout 6 organic grains and legumes: wheat, barley, millet, lentils, soybeans, and spelt, then bake them slowly to preserve the nutrients. The ingredient list has 11 items, all recognizable, all organic, no added sugar, no preservatives, no dough conditioners, no chemical emulsifiers, no soybean oil, no canola oil. Independent testing through the Detox Project has found non-detectable levels of glyphosate in their sprouted bread products. The sprouting process itself reduces anti-nutrients and increases mineral absorption, making the bread easier to digest and more bioavailable. For people managing blood sugar, Ezekiel bread has a glycemic index around 36 compared to 70 or higher for white bread. That is a meaningful difference for anyone on diabetic medication or watching their insulin response. You will find it in the freezer section because it contains no preservatives. It goes stale like real bread should. That is not a flaw. That is proof it is real. The second safe recommendation is 1 Degree Organics sprouted bread. This company does something almost no other bread brand in America does. They publish the source of every single ingredient, not just the country of origin, but the actual farm. Every bag has a QR code you can scan to trace the wheat back to the field where it was grown. 1 Degree Organics is the only bread brand we found that carries glyphosate residue-free certification from the Detox Project, meaning they test every batch multiple times per year using third-party labs. They do not rely on the organic seal alone. They verify it with independent science. Their ingredient list is short: organic sprouted whole wheat, water, organic whole grain oats, organic cane sugar, yeast, sea salt, organic cultured wheat. No DATEM, no calcium sulfate, no monoglycerides, no hidden processing aids. Open a bag and the difference is immediate. You can smell the grain. The texture is dense and nutty, not airy and engineered. It tears instead of compressing. This is bread that behaves like bread because it is bread, nothing more. For anyone who has spent years paying premium prices for organic labels that failed them, this is what transparency actually looks like. Not a marketing slogan, a traceable supply chain with published lab results. And here is the simple way to protect yourself that I promised earlier. First, flip the bag over and count the ingredients. Real bread needs 5 or fewer: flour, water, salt, yeast, and maybe a healthy oil. If the list has more than 10 items, put it back. Second, look for third-party certifications beyond USDA Organic. Glyphosate Residue, free from the Detox Project and non-GMO Project. Verified are the two that actually require independent lab testing. The organic seal alone is not enough. Third, buy bread from the freezer section. Bread that does not need to be frozen to survive has been engineered with preservatives and emulsifiers to resist nature. Real bread spoils. That is how you know it is real. Now you know, and now you are ahead of 90% of shoppers who are still trusting labels that were designed to fool them. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe right now. Every week, we uncover the foods, brands, and labels that are putting your health at risk, and we always show you the safer choice. Subscribe now, and if you are watching on TV, tap your remote so you never get blindsided again.